Truly, I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. We have resorted to this hymn, Crux Fidelis, of which we have just heard another verse, to get away from transactional interpretations of the cross. And apparently there we are, back at it again, as Jesus is called in the second line, the price of the world. It seems inescapable. And indeed, one of the metaphors used by the New Testament to talk about the way God saved us is redemption, apolutrosis in Greek, an image which refers to the paying of a ransom, a price to emancipate slaves. And Peter mentions it in his first letter when he says that you know that it was not with perishable things like silver and gold that you were rescued, but with the precious blood of Christ. Many authors have toyed with this image in what is known, I mentioned it earlier, the ransom theory. A price was paid. This price is Christ's blood on the cross, that is his death. And yet, as soon as one probes this image, countless difficulties arise. Who were we enslaved by? To whom was the ransom paid? Was it paid to the devil? Would not this entail that the devil has rights, is an equal legitimate contender with God, has a rightful claim over us? And how could blood benefit the devil? We could go on for a while. Can we really talk of Jesus' blood as a price, a pretium, then? Well, in animist and pagan sacrifices, the shedding of the blood of an animal and sometimes of a human being was indeed used as a pretium, as a price to propitiate a divinity, to obtain its favor, to make up for something. The killing of the victim and the shedding of the blood were the essence of the sacrifice. Now, the sacrificial system of the Jewish people in the Old Testament is diametrically opposed to pagan and animist sacrifices. Animals destined for the sacrifices in the Old Testament were not killed by priests, but by servants or assistants, and were not slain in the temple, but outside it. There were different kinds of sacrifices, yes, but when blood was involved, the priest would just collect it and then do something highly unusual with it. Can you guess? The priest took some of this blood to sprinkle the people with it, a bit in the same way as the priest does with holy water in some of our celebrations, and then use the rest of the blood to sprinkle the altar, which represented God. In the Jewish mentality, the blood that runs through the veins of both people and animals belongs to God. This is why there was an absolute prohibition to eat or drink it, and the meat of animals could be consumed only once it had been drained of all its blood. This is explained in a crucial passage of the book of Leviticus, in which it is said For the life of a creature is in the blood, and I have given it, this blood, to you to make atonement. Here is the word, atonement, for yourselves on the altar. It is the blood that makes atonement for one's life. And of course, if you understand atonement as expiation, there we are, transaction. And yet, God emphatically declares here that it is not us who give the blood to God, but He. He says, I have given you this blood. Clearly then, this rules out the idea that we could turn it into a price, something we can give to God in exchange of something else. This helps us to understand how blood atones. Not in the sense that it could expiate for us, make reparation for us, but in the etymological sense of the word, which I mentioned too earlier, because it makes us one with God, it at-ones us with God. This is the very reason why God is so jealous of blood, why He claims exclusive ownership of it. Because by being signed with it, symbolically, we acknowledge that we belong to Him too. And this is why the blood is sprinkled both on the people and on the altar, which stands for God. Sprinkled with this blood, we are made one with God and with each other. Again, we are at one. The same symbolism is at work in our worship each Sunday. When to the priest who presents us the chalice and says, "The blood of Christ," we reply, "Amen." That is, I believe it. I say yes to it. We are no more sprinkled with the blood of animals, but we drink the wine which Jesus gave us as the blood of the new covenant, as He declares at the Last Supper, and as the celebrant repeats each Sunday during the prayer of consecration. The blood of the covenant. The word covenant and the word at-one-ment have the same exact meaning, to become one with God and with each other. And Jesus' blood has this power for one reason and one only, not because it is a price, but because it is the sign of His life given out of love for the Father and for us all. Whenever we hear blood in connection with Jesus, we should translate love. The blood of Christ means the love of Christ. When you say amen, when you receive the blood of Christ, it is to the love of God that you say amen. A love which means that from now on, God is forever ours and we are His. God is forever with us and we are forever with Him. And indeed, we know it because as He is giving His blood, His life, His love for us all, to the person who is dying of the same death beside Him, Jesus says, "Truly, I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." Sometimes I think that the authors of the Gospels love riddles and send us on the wrong track so as to add to the excitement of the quest for meaning, for the passion in our search for answers, and thus deepen our desire. This sentence is the only instance in the Gospels where we find the word paradise. And it is tempting to be distracted by this word, press its meaning, chase its etymology. And yet, beyond suggesting a place or a condition which is going to be pleasant, it is really hard to make more out of this word. One thing I've learned about the interpretation of dubious texts or words is that the first place to look for their meaning is in the verse itself, intratextual, in the very sentence in which they are used. And indeed, if you do not let the decoy paradise distract you, and if you are familiar with God's style and codes, you might discover that the answer, the pearl of great price, is hidden in two little words, devised to go unnoticed unless you are really paying attention. And the words are, with me, with me. What is God doing on the cross? How does he save us? What is to be saved, to be in paradise? Simply this, to be with God, to be one with him, with the Father and with each other, to be at one. What Jesus is really saying to the good thief is this: today, that is now, in this very moment, you already are in paradise, because this is paradise, to be reconciled with the Father through me, to be at one, to be with me. The good thief, just as the centurion who is about to declare, surely this man was the Son of God, might not yet be aware of it, but already is caught by the gravitational force of the love of the Father and of the Son on display on the cross. He already is with him, and he discovers that God already is with him too. We are right to think that there is a paradise, that there is a life after death in which, as Paul says, we will be with God forever. But for those who believe, this paradise, this life starts here. Between this present existence and life in a paradise, there will be a difference of forms, but the substance will be the same. So what Jesus is saying to us is this: paradise already is here today, now, for the good thief, as for every one of us. Because God has proved to us that there is no situation in our life, no trial, no darkness, no crime, no degradation where he is not willing to remain with us, endure with us, be at one with us.